project. Welcome for attending the Taraxa Dev Update for July of 2024. And a few reminders and a few logistical reminders. We typically hold monthly dev updates on the second Thursday of each month. So if you want to set up your calendar for a reminder, that's a good pattern to go with. Second Thursday of each month at 12 p.m. UTC. All progress updates are typically included in the monthly update that is published prior to these AMAs, so you can actually read about them ahead of time if you like. We also publish written summarized transcripts after each AMA in case you missed it, in case you prefer to actually read text rather than listen. And as always, if you have questions you would like to submit to the update in the Q&A section, please submit your questions ahead of time, if possible, through our social channels on Twitter, on Telegram, on Discord, or wherever. And you can also just show up and ask the questions in real time if you like. So let's begin. All right. So first thing everyone wants to know about the bridge. So the bridge, as far as we can see, is fully functional. Okay, and it has been fully activated. And so we have deployed everything last week. They activated yesterday. We deployed all the contracts, all the indexers, everything. And as far as we can see, it looks like everything's working correctly. We're going to have another meeting later today. And if everything looks good, we're going to publish the tutorial to make sure everyone knows how to use the bridge. And this is, again, the bridge is a very critical and very complicated piece of decentralized infrastructure. So the entire dev team has been and will continue to observe the bridge and as well as the mainnet network very, very closely in the coming days and weeks to make sure that nothing strange is happening. And yeah, so please be on the lookout for tutorials that should be coming out later today. All right. Our priorities, development priorities when it comes to the bridge and throughout the next, in the near and medium term, we're going to continue to test and stress test the bridge in the coming weeks and months to make sure that it is secure. And we're also, another thing that we want to focus on is building in optimizations and maybe clever tricks to lower the cost of bridging transactions as well as lower the delay of these bridging transactions. Both the cost and the delay are basically completely driven by the fact that gas fees on Ethereum are extremely, extremely high. So as everyone knows, Taraxa's bridge is fully permissionless and decentralized, which means all the bridging proofs are being done on-chain through smart contracts. These proofs are very expensive, given Ethereum's high fees. So there are a few tricks that we have come up with. I think that could help us to lower these fees and also perhaps lower the delay between them and lower the delay between bridging transactions. So we're going to, keep testing the bridge, keep stress testing it, and we're going to try out some of these tricks to see if we can get the costs lower. Obviously, the lower the cost, the more potential usage there would be on the bridge. All right, so next, let's talk about DeFi, right? So we have a great lineup of DeFi applications coming up. We've been talking about it. I think leading up to the bridge's activation, we'll keep talking about it going forward because the bridge obviously is a critical component of the overall DeFi infrastructure within the Taraxa ecosystem. If you read our monthly updates, if you keep up with our tweets, if you keep up with our announcements in our social channels, you'll see that lots of DeFi applications have already launched, right? So we have a DEX plus Launchpad plus NFT marketplace, which will be launching very soon, called Fusi app. And these actually come from the same team that built the AAA arena shooter game, Fusi Fox. So it has a interesting reward system around gamified seasons, missions, and points, and it's a highly gamified incentive system. So because they build games, I think it's pretty interesting. Please check out Fusi and stay on their social channels as well as Taraxa's social channels to watch out for the launch date. And just as an aside, Fusi Fox, the game itself that they built, the AAA arena shooter game, went over I think 2,100 unique active wallets. So please check out the game if you haven't already. That's really cool. All right, so the liquid staking protocol, Lara, actually conducted a pre-sale, I think last week or the week before that. But it completed its pre-sale in under 7 hours. Liquid staking is has become, I think, as we see on the Ethereum ecosystem, a very interesting and um, a very useful, I think, piece of DeFi infrastructure. It enables people to obviously gain liquidity in their staking. It helps to bootstrap DeFi protocols, and it also, in the longer term, enables restaking, right? Which is also something very interesting uh, uh, as far as the market is concerned. So we're very eagerly looking forward to the Lara protocol being deployed in the near future. The only thing that prevents it from deploying, as far as I know, is an upcoming planned upgrade to the DPoS contract on the mainnet ledger. So that's something that we're definitely going to be scheduling and talking about now that the bridge has completed the deployment as well as activation. All right. So a few near-term new DeFi projects coming up. We have a few oracles that are coming up. Teller, I think we're talking to this oracle called DIA. I'm not sure what the status is, but we're always looking to integrate a variety of applications, variety of oracles, so that different DeFi applications have different options to use different types of oracles if they like. We have more dexes. I get the one I know about is TerraSwap. So that one's coming up as well. We have a synthetic stablecoin, Meridian, coming up as well. In terms of DeFi, right? I think there are and will probably will be a lot of questions about DeFi related. So DeFi related questions. So first of all, we're working very closely with all of the DeFi protocol ecosystem partners, these DApp teams, to make sure that they're first of all properly they get proper exposure through the Taraxa channels. We're going to keep talking about it whenever something happens with these ecosystem projects, whether it's DeFi, social AI, that we help to give them as much exposure as possible. And we're also going to work with specifically the DeFi projects to make sure that they are integrated into aggregators like DeFi Llama. We've done some research and asked around, and I think we're pretty sure about how to get integrated into a lot of these aggregators. They involve building SDKs basically with the DeFi protocols. So yeah, we're definitely going to make sure that happens, because obviously if you're not on one of these aggregators, your DeFi application, TVL, the entire ecosystem is pretty much invisible to the outside world, right? So we're also working very closely with members of the Taraxa community to ensure that our DeFi ecosystem has attractive incentives. The entire DeFi world, lives and is driven by incentives. We want to make sure that that exists here in the Taraxa ecosystem as well. Okay, so with social AI, um, let's talk about Echo, right? So we are currently so for those of you who don't know, right? So the Echo network, the Echo platform, is a decentralized data and analytics social data and analytics network that's layered on top of the Taraxa layer one. It's currently plugged into over 20,000 Telegram groups. It has fine-tuned models for spam and bot filtering, so that you actually get clean data. These are all uniquely tuned for social data as well as specifically Telegram data. We're also layering. We're right now layering in the process of layering a series of AI models on top of Echo, so providing them as microservices. So these are things that already are being used in many of the applications that have been published, many of the dApps that have been built on top of Echo. We're trying to abstract them out as interesting kind of microservices because we've gotten interest from other projects, from other ecosystems that might want to make use of them, for example. So some of these models are categorization, summarization, entity extraction. So summarization, for example, allows people to do their own research, but automatically, right? So they can get a real-time summary on any asset, any narrative, or any topic at all they would like about from the Telegram social data, so that they can get a very accurate and real-time understanding of what the wider community is talking about on a specific topic. So this is extremely powerful. People always say do your own research. It is so hard to do your own research, and this I think will help to facilitate a lot of it. What's actually most powerful about it is that we can actually trace back to specific conversations that influence these summaries, so you can actually even get more details. And also, that it's not generated out of thin air, right? You can actually trace back to the source data. So again, this feature specifically is something that a lot of other projects have expressed interest in. So we're going to push forward with this. Categorization is more of an intermediary, I think, developer focused feature. It allows you to categorize any specific conversation by narrative. Okay. There's also entity extraction, where you take a piece of social conversation and you say what crypto related stuff, right, are they actually talking about. So these are all interesting and very powerful tools that we're layering on top of the Echo platform, specifically for use for other projects and developers. Yeah, so our BD efforts are on these microservices are focused on inserting them into existing applications, existing projects. On the social AI front, we've seen a lot of developments from TrendSpotter, the model that actually automatically trades on your behalf using social AI generated signals. So they have been doing partnerships with platforms such as Trading Strategy, Telegram trading bots with CryFi. So the idea is to integrate these signals into as many execution platforms as possible, so that these trades can actually be executed across DEXs, or automatically, or offered as or offered as execution options, right, into more kind of hands-on trading bots that people are used to, for example, in Telegram trading bots. We actually just had an AMA yesterday with TrendSpotter and Trading Strategy. So I think pretty soon they're going to work together and actually open up one or two trading strategies that would be available to anyone who wants to sign up. I think initially the strategies will be in kind of a closed beta, so people need to sign up. But yeah, we expect great things from this because we keep seeing we keep seeing kind of unbelievable returns from the back testing of these algorithms. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting for people. And it's a really great showcase of just how powerful social AI signals can be when you use them properly, right? All right. Next part. A lot of questions. I think people are wondering about BD and marketing. So we have been ramping up our BD efforts, and this is specifically outbound BD, right? So this is where we actually have people on our team going out, reaching out to other projects, other ecosystems, and we have been adding, team members into the BD team as well, dedicated to BD. So we have been creating a much larger sales inbound sales funnel. Yeah, so we'll be sharing. You'll see the results, right, from resulting partnerships and integrations and announcements. So we're pretty optimistic about the way things are going, And now that we have more people helping us out, and yeah, so please be on the lookout for more announcements. On the marketing front, we are just a lot more focused on developing more and more channels that can get us access to reputable creators on social media. In the past years, we have literally tried every single method you can think of that has to do with marketing. Marketing on itself is extremely difficult to quantify and measure, right? And we're not really in the habit of throwing money into thin air if we can't measure the outcomes. Um, but that being said, it's extremely difficult to measure and quantify the outcomes. But the only thing that has really been obviously working has been working with creators, reputable creators, right? So we're in the process of trying to get that going. In the past, we have worked successfully with reputable creators. One of the big difficulties of working with creators is that they're highly cyclical. So if you're in the space, if you pay attention to the space, you often find that reputable creators often kind of disappear after a cycle. A lot of the newer reputable creators were often, kind of enter the space at the at the end of the last cycle. That's just the way things work, I guess, in this world. So every few years, you have to basically rebuild your entire your entire social strategy because the people you've been working with no longer work in the space. So this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to build lasting relationships across cycles. So then anyway, we are adding in a lot more channels, a lot more channel partners to facilitate us pitching to these reputable, large and reputable creators. It's going to take time, but hopefully we'll make some breakthroughs soon. Okay. So let's see. I know that there are a whole bunch of questions submitted previously on Twitter. So let's try to go through them one by one. I think they're all from one person, as far as I can see. Valentine. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. All right. So the first one. Will Taraxa have a Terra USDT pool on Uniswap? All right. It's all these questions are kind of long. I probably can't read through them very closely. So, with regards to pools, I'm going to repeat something that I said earlier in this update, which is that as the dev team, we're going to be working closely with members of the Taraxa community to ensure that our DeFi ecosystem has attractive incentives. That's as much as we can say about that. Number two, regarding liability and regulatory compliance, decouple from the Taraxa name to create a foundation. Yeah, so we live in the world, right? As the Taraxa dev team or any entity that comes later, we're all going to be complying with regulations. We're not here to break laws. We're not here to break regulatory precedents. Okay, so we're going to be complying with in as much as we can, humanly possible, to all the relevant regulations. Right? We're not here to break any laws. We have never broken any laws. We are in maximum reasonably within reason compliance with all relevant regulations since the first day the project started. So, and that is not going to change going forward. So there's the third question about decreasing the 32-day cooldown. Yeah, so the reason there are several reasons why there's a cooldown. There's a 32-day cooldown involved with unstaking, right? So the first thing is, of course, from a network security perspective, if people can stake and unstake very quickly, then what that does is that it actually it actually creates problems where I think different the validators on the network and the algorithms sort of can't catch up. But with the staking and unstaking, kind of the speed of staking and unstake. So if there were no delay at all, and people can just stake and unstake however they want, however frequently they want, that creates a lot of problems for at least the PVFT voting algorithm, as far as I know. Does it have to be 32 days? I think the reason why it was set to be a longer period of time is because staking is it is a long-term kind of activity, right? If you want to speculate on the underlying asset, then feel free to speculate. That's pretty clear. You don't have to stake, right? It's not and like anyone's forcing you to do that. Um, Having people who stake that frequently unstakes kind of come in and out is not really healthy for the network. Again, it's just not really meant for to be something that's designed for speculators. Does it exactly have to be 32 days? I don't know. I don't think there's a. I'm not really sure if there's an optimal time because I think they're both security as well as kind of economic considerations here. I'm not sure you can arrive at an exactly kind of a right number of days. Um, anyway, we have Lara coming out. We have liquid staking protocols coming out. And I think this question also is concerned about centralizing staking inside Lara. Um, I mean, that's the whole point of liquid staking, right? I think people like liquid staking because it is able to actually, have liquidity on the stake tokens. So, again, not really sure what the alternatives are there. Um, Maybe there will be multiple liquid staking protocols. I don't really know. So, but the reason why they're set this long is because it disincentivizes people who just want to speculate. I mean, why? If you want to if you keep wanting to speculate on on the underlying asset, don't stake. Right? It's pretty simple. Right? Pretty simple. Yeah. Okay. So for a press release, so there's a press release planned, and they will be on the reputable. Um, they will appear on reputable um, media, right? But it will be under the press release sections. Okay. So yeah. Um, I mean, a lot of these partnerships I think are interesting. Um, we in order to get in order to be covered by I think extremely large and reputable journalists, you need to be building that relationship for years and years. It just doesn't happen like right away. Okay. You need to have a team of people building that relationship with a lot of these journalists. We just don't have the resources to do that. We don't have the time to wait for that. It just takes a really long time. I don't know what else to say. And I'm not really sure if a lot of people care about this media. I think back in 2017, 2018, people cared about mainstream media. And a few days later, people care about crypto media. But as far as I know, right now, people just care about, social creators, right? That's what really moves the needle. I think people really want to, yeah. Anyway, these type of media, it takes a really long time to get on because you have to start build a lot of relationships. Just paying them gets you into sponsor sections, which isn't really meant for exposure. It's just really meant for search engine optimization because they'll be linking back into your website, linking back to your whatever. And we can definitely do that by just paying them, right? And we will be doing that. We have press releases out into these PR release channels that's going to get us on all the crypto media. That doesn't again that doesn't get you exposure per se. Indirectly gets you exposure by just having breadcrumbs and backlinks on the internet, which is advantageous. To get like coverage, like front page coverage, our ecosystem needs to be sufficiently big. We need to have extremely strong relationships with the journalists as well as the editorial boards. Um, these are these are not easy relationships to build, because we tried it before. Given limited time and resources, we'd rather focus on some things that have demonstrated significant impact, such as social creators. So that's basically it. I mean, there are really two things you want to do on a layer one ecosystem. You want to, at the end of the day, the goal is to get usage. Okay, just as much usage as you want on the layer one ecosystem, as many transactions, as many active wallets. And in order to get usage, you need to get a lot of application people want to use, right? And applications really just comes from BD efforts, the right kind of financial incentives. So the more usage you have, the better it is. And of course, you need users, and users largely are influenced and swayed by creators on social media platforms. So that's really the way it is. I think again, I don't know how, whether or not it's easier or harder. I think it's slightly easier to pitch social creators than it is to build long-term relationships with journalists and their editorial boards, because that takes a really long time. Let's just put it that way. And yeah, it's just not really worth the time, I don't think. If we're going to spend time on anything, I'd rather think we spend time on the social creators. Um, yeah. So how do you get attention as a layer one? Um, I think people, and this is, I think, an easy fallacy to fall into, right? I don't really think that there's going to be a layer one that takes up everything. That just doesn't make sense. It's almost like saying, well, there's going to be one company that eats up the entire market. I mean, that's a monopoly. I don't think we ever had a global monopoly on any market. That doesn't, we have companies that probably come close, right? Like maybe in the diamond industry and things like that. But typically speaking, as far as technical infrastructure goes, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, even Ethereum, like the king of layer ones, really, they're kind of fragmenting into a lot of layer twos, and it just doesn't make sense for one layer one to take up the whole market. Um, so ever since we started Taraxa back in 2017, 2018, we've always thought that it doesn't make sense for a layer one to stay quote unquote general purpose. I think layer ones are built to be general purpose. So like you're making steel, you're making screws or whatever. They're kind of widely applicable for any application. They're Turing complete logic. You can build anything on top of it. That being said, the market doesn't usually favor extremely general purpose infrastructure, right? Because at some point, there's just going to be too much traffic and too many use cases for one single piece of infrastructure to handle. I mean, again, we are already seeing that, right? Ethereum used to be the only gaming town. It's not the only gaming town anymore. I think different use cases are starting to splinter into different ecosystems, even within Ethereum, into different layer twos. So we've always been extremely interested in kind of building up some sort of application or ecosystem specific use case or set of use cases that can reside on Taraxa, and Taraxa can be known for that, right? I think that has always been the goal from day one. In the future, in terms of layer ones, just like in a lot of other industries, I think these infrastructures are going to be known. We think they're just gonna be way more than hundreds of. I think this question says there are hundreds of L1s. I think in the future there's going to be millions of L1s. I don't think the number of L1 infrastructure is going to decrease. I think it's going to increase, and it's going to exponentially increase. We're already seeing a lot of tools that kind of facilitate that, right? From people like Cosmos and Polkadot, that as well as Avalanche, that just allows you to deploy your own layer one, right? We have lots of bridges, and that's why we built the bridge, right? That allows interoperability and intercommunication between layer ones. So that experience right now is a little clunky, but I think very quickly, from a technical perspective as well as a US perspective, it will be abstracted away. So it will be very, very, very seamless. I think basically what will happen is that there's going to be lots and lots of layer ones, and each one of them is going to carve out their specific niche in terms of application and use cases. And then once that niche is discovered, people can actually start specializing the underlying infrastructure from a technical perspective to further solidify their hold on a specific use case. We've already seen specializations. I think ever since we started building Taraxa back in 2017, 2018, we've seen ideas about specializations. I think Algorand was the first one to propose these built-in smart contract. They're not smart contract. They're kind of much at a lower level. They're pre-compiled financial primitives. We've seen people like the Say Network that builds concurrent modules for order books that are highly specialized to increase the performance of one very, very specific use case. And that can be done across a variety of things, right? I mean, I think I was at SCC for a week, and I saw, there was this project called Galadriel, which is pretty interesting. They're building, they're they're actually building quantized LLMs that create deterministic outputs, so that it can be actively validated on a decentralized network. So there are these increasingly there are these, you can see, like, sort of tech stacks that are being built to specifically target a specific use case, and they're optimized for that specific use case. So I think we're going to just see more and more of that going forward. And it's a process of trial and error. It's a process of discovery. So hopefully we will quickly discover that use case. It's not solely, I think, on the part of the development team or the community to actually figure that out. I think a lot of times the market needs to reach a certain type of maturity. The crypto space at large needs to reach a certain type of a certain level of popularity for that to happen. But the key is to keep on moving forward, keep on experimenting. We've always seen, obviously, Taraxa as a long-term project. It's not we're less concerned about what happens to it in the next few months or the next year or two. We're more concerned with what happens to it in the next 10 years or 20 years. And that involves a lot of experimentation. You don't just suddenly discover your use case, right? Suddenly, right? After like 1 or 2 years after launch. I don't think that happens. So anyway, sorry, that's a kind of a long-winded question to this long-winded answer to this question. But so layer ones are going to become application specific, and there's going to be millions of them. And our goal is to find something that's unique to us, and we can quickly actually get a lot more use cases, a lot more applications, a lot more users, and congregate them as quickly as possible, piling them up as quickly as possible into Taraxa, so that we do build up those network effects that makes us extremely competitive in the market, right? So anyway, let's see. Another one. Okay, so this one says DAOs can be a bottleneck. So this is actually saying that whether or not we have plans to build a larger, more traditional team. I mean, I guess So here's the thing, right? I personally, this is just my personal view, have no interest in building a huge team. Because at the very beginning, the whole reason why I'm so attracted to decentralization is I hate large organizations. The reason why I hate them is because I've seen how they fail to scale. Because they don't have, there's too much bureaucracy, there's too much coordination, there's too much effort wasted, time, resources wasted on coordination, and those efforts that are wasted on coordination ends up stifling innovation, ends up creating a lot of politics, creates a lot of inefficiencies. What's beautiful about decentralization is that if you actually do it correctly, you can actually create kind of the anti-organization, right? So we haven't seen obviously extremely successful cases just yet, because typically the trade-off of decentralization is that everything kind of moves a little bit slowly. I think there is something to be said about how incentives are structured in the current DAOs. I don't. The DAO is like I guess a good idea. It's probably the best idea that we have right now. I'm not really sure how it could be improved to create the type of incentivized, great incentivized ecosystem we're talking about. I think the key here, and this is going to very abstract topics here, right? So the key here is this, right? So I think it's on Taraxa's white paper, right? So it's always been a goal to actually elect, elect board members or council members, or whatever they were calling the white paper, to actually govern Taraxa, and they're up for periodic elections and things like that. And that process, yeah, it's really slow, right? Direct democracy is very, very slow. We have indirect democracy in the form of these directors, but they're also bound by the fact that there's going to be very frequent elections, so that kind of hampers how much they can do. But I think the point of the DAO is to govern resources. Um, the point of the DAO is not to execute on anything, right? I mean, the DAOs they're too slow to actually do anything meaningful, but they're not too slow to allocate resources on a longer time horizon. Um, Organizationally, the components of an organization, whether decentralized or actually executing, needs to be fast. And they still reside on small teams, decentralized teams, who are correctly, the quote unquote correctly. What does that mean? It means they're sufficiently incentivized to move very quickly. Um, and It's also very difficult to provide quote unquote oversight, because you know the council member is not gonna, they're not supervisors, not gonna go and watch everyone's work. Community members, they barely gonna participate in elections. They're definitely not gonna watch anyone's work, and they're probably, most of them are probably not qualified to do any of that stuff. So again, I think incentives are what matters, right? You want to set up the right incentives so that they do work towards a goal that makes sense for everybody. I haven't seen anyone do this correctly yet. It's a very kind of a, I would say, kind of a long-term goal. But yeah, I didn't get into the space to create a large organization. It defeats the entire purpose of me trying to be in it. If we were trying to create a large company out of like being Taraxa, I might as well not do any of this stuff, because it's just like a typical company. When I was a strategy consultant, I told this story many times. I helped a lot of Fortune 100 huge companies with tens and hundreds of billions of annual revenue. Would come to us and ask, how do we innovate? How do we move faster? And the answer is they can't. They just can't. They are on a trajectory of slow but inevitable decline. They will die at some point, and they will die not because the people there are incompetent, but because the organization is set up to fail. Um, when organizations get past a certain size, it fails. So the key here is to not build up a large organization, but to really focus on incentives, right? To really focus on right incentives and to build up decentralized and autonomous interfaces between participants in this decentralized organization. This is what makes decentralization truly revolutionary, right? I think many people don't realize that. Most people in crypto today just want to get in, make 10x profit, and leave, right? That's that's really not what crypto is about. That's not really not decentralization is about. It's really about removing friction from organizational coordination and creating a truly flat organization, a flat decentralized organization where each participant are correctly incentivized and through just trial and error and evolution, they can rapidly iterate and produce the correct outcomes, right? As dictated by the holders, the community, or whatever. But yeah, it's not really a good idea to build up large organizations. It defeats the whole point of being here. Um, when will the rebranding be finished? The rebranding is finished. We're just in the process of rebuilding the website. I know it's been slow, but since the entire team is focused on the bridge, we haven't had a lot of time to work on the updated website. Um, but we will get back to it, and we will release a lot of the branding materials to the community so that you can all make use of it. I think a lot of you have seen these elements. Some people like it, some people don't. You're not going to be able to create something that everyone likes. That's just the way it is. But it's a lot more consistent. It's a lot more flexible. It enables people to create things and still. The key, I think, for this rebranding, one of the key features is that it allows people to actually adding their own creativity while remaining consistent with the overall branding. So I really like that. You're seeing a lot of it in the banners that we've been publishing on social. I think that's one goal that I believe we've achieved. So anyway, it looks better than what we had before, which is nothing, right? So huge improvement there. Um, who do we view as a competitor? Um, well, I mean, I guess everyone's a competitor and everyone isn't really a competitor. I'm not really sure what to say about that. I think when you're doing startups, it's not really a good idea to focus on competition. It's a much better idea to focus on your users. So in our case, DApp developers, right? Can we provide an excellent experience to the developers or to the projects that actually make use of our infrastructure, or to the consumers of Echo microservices or things like that, right? So these are the people that we're going to focus on. We're not going to be worried about this guy, that guy doing this and that. Should we copy them? Should we whatever? That's a recipe for disaster, right? Should be focused on who are actually using your product, right? And largely they're going to be developers, other projects, other developers. So this is why we're again very focused on outbound BD, right? We're going to be doing a lot more of that. We have been doing a lot more of that. We're going to keep ramping that up. With the deployment of the bridge, I think that's probably I wouldn't say the last one, but it's going to be the last one for a pretty long time, I would say. Last piece of infrastructure for a pretty long time. Um, you can't just keep on building more and more infrastructure. You have to start refocusing your efforts and resources into driving usage and adoption. There's just way too many projects in crypto that do nothing but build infrastructure all day long. That's not that's not cool, right? You build tech and no one uses them. That's not really that helpful. So anyway, yeah. So we're going to be very focused on the users, which are developers and other applications, other developers, and how we can provide value to them. We're going to be very focused on discovering sort of the use case that we can gain a lot of traction on, and actually build our ecosystem up into something that's use case and application specific down the road, so that we do have long term sustainability as a layer one infrastructure and layer one ecosystem. So yeah, that's the goal. The goal is not to keep looking at competition. In I think it is a good idea to look at the technical stuff that people are doing, and yeah, we do spend time doing that. Although we spend a lot less time doing that these days since we're so busy implementing infrastructure stuff. But hopefully, in the coming months and year or two, we're gonna have a lot more time to start looking at what interesting tech other people have been building. This is again the great thing about crypto is everything's open source, so you're free to check out what other people are doing. There are a lot of smart people out there building really cool stuff, so it's always interesting to look at what they're doing and what we can learn from that. So from a technical perspective, I think there are a lot of projects we can learn from potentially, but ultimately from an ecosystem perspective, we need to be focused on the developers and projects and that are actually using the layer one. So yeah. All right. Let's see. All right. I think um, I think those are all the questions. Cool. Well, as usual, if you have any questions or concerns or whatever, please obviously send them out in our social channels, on Twitter, on Telegram, on Discord, wherever. And so great. All right. Thank you guys. And we'll be sending out a written transcript as usual. And yeah, please follow us for more near term, like later today, kind of near term updates on the bridge, primarily to the tutorials. All right. Thank you guys very much. We'll talk to you again soon.